Om Nityo Nityanal Chaitanas Chaitananam Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadati Kaman Tamatmastam Yenupashanti Diraha Desham Shanti Shashvati Netaresham Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. That one, the eternal among non-eternal things, the intelligence of the most intelligent ones, who though ever one, nevertheless fulfills the desires of the many. That one, the realized souls know as their own self. To them belong peace and to none else. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Hiran Maye Parikoshi Virajan Brahmaniskalam Tachu Brahm Jyotisham Jyoti Tatyaratma Viddo Vidduhu. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. Shining like burnished gold, highest and deepest, the core intelligence of living beings, partless and indivisible, ever pure and free of all taint. The essence of everything, which all beings seek, either knowingly or unknowingly, there shines Brahman. It is that which the Guru teaches. It is that which the wise ones exult in. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Sahana, Om Sahana Vavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Saha Viryam Karavo Vahai, Tejasvi Navaditamastu Ma Vidveshovahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman, divine reality, protect us. May Brahman sustain us. May Brahman illumine our thinking consciousness. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the teachings. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. So here at SRV, Oregon, we have just arrived after a retreat in California on the American River and some teaching at some correctional institutions on the way up, which I attend to and try and give the Vedanta to all kinds of people, all cross sections, as we were listening to Sri Ramakrishna in the Gospel just before the live streaming audience joined us. Welcome, Swagatam. So here is our first event, other than Friday night, last night, when we had a satsang and talked about the world walking around with the wool over its eyes and how you have to try and lift that up once in a while, catch a glimpse of reality, which is reflected here. It's, according to our tradition, God's not in the universe is in God, so you have to go at it a little bit different orientation. Right orientation, Lord Buddha called it, in the Eightfold Path. So there's got to be like a 2% shift or something, so that if something's in the way, you can see around it. That which is in the way is that four-letter word we talk about often called Maya, which is an interesting subject. It's neither all negative or all positive or just a combination of both. In fact, most of the seers just call it inscrutable. It's just unfigurable. It's what flummoxes people and confuses them. At the same time, it's the makeup of everything with name and form in time and space, and that causes cause and effect. Well, we call it karma, cause and effect to happen. So those 5 things are a good definition that Swami Vivekananda gave us, the definition of Maya, when he came in 1893. Before that, people were calling it illusion, as little as anyone had heard anything about from India in 1893. But when he came on the scene, then we started to get some real light and some elucidation. I think of him as our first and only patron saint in America. Poor America, so divorced and bereft of any kind of true religion or spirituality for so long, finally got a great light coming into its midst. And therefore he acted as that beacon, the Lion of Vedanta, they called him. So if you spoke out any esoteric word from the Sanskrit language, many of those words having no equivalent in English, then he would be right there in attention and make sure to call out the poor definitions like, oh, Maya is just an illusion. But it doesn't explain Maya because, for one thing, people's experiences don't feel illusory to them. They feel very real, say suffering. Ultimately, yes, illusory when you are able to transcend them. But in the meantime, you're coursing your way through Maya. Sri Ramakrishna, whose words we heard before live streaming audience joined us today, said that Maya is like that force that holds one hand over your eyes and leads you on with the other. So there's always a covering power to Maya, and then there's also a distorting power. We know that in Sanskrit again to be avarana and vikshepa. But there's also a revelatory power in Maya. It doesn't really get its turn that much because when you go to Buddhism or when you go to yoga or when you go to Vedanta, particularly those 3 darshanas, you're always coming face to face with negative teachings. Negative teachings which are very healthy, because if that wool is over your eyes, then you're going to need some sort of effort on your part or some sort of grace from another being who's awakened to help you lift that. So if everyone gets up this morning and across the whole country and they've just got a bar of wool in front of their eyes and they're walking around blinded by it and nobody ever thinks to take it off and look at it, but the realized soul is a person who couldn't bear that and swept it away and is seeing and trying to remove the wool from other people's eyes. So they'll do that by one of 2 courses. They'll either just tear it off completely like an unsheathed sword, like Vivekananda, or they'll lift it every once in a while and then let it drop back down. They have to be in empathy with beings who never heard of the word Maya yet, because I remember when I was 19 and discovered the word, that then all of my problems made sense to me, and the goal of life became apparent to me. And having that in mind, then I could make my way towards some definitive goal, which wasn't just an intellectual goal or like the realm of the scientists or any other kind of relative knowledge. Secular subjects, for instance, which have a little revealing power in them. But any kind of revelatory power you uncover, like say the power in an atom, you have to be very careful with it. It's really Shakti. In our tradition, particles and the power inside of them, whether they be material particles or these words I'm speaking to you that have letters, and inside the letters there's meaning, thoughts of alphabets, many languages, and inside of that is a power called Shakti that if you use those words and particles right, if you direct the particles in a stream, focus it, like the father of yoga wants you to concentrate, direct it at a stream towards any bit of darkness or ignorance that's there in you or in others. And then apply it to to those areas, then this revelatory power will be on your side. It'll waken up souls in any given period of time, because Buddha was very famous for revealing to us cycles. And India, from time out of mind, has always thought of the timeless, deathless reality, and that everything else is in cycles. And those cycles are beginningless and middleless and endless. Kala is the word in Sanskrit. So there's no origination to anything. It's not like it had a beginning or a middle or an end. God doesn't have a beginning, middle, and end. You don't have a beginning, middle, and end. The you I'm talking about is your Atman, your true self, because your ego has an apparent beginning, middle, and end, but it also bounces back and gets born again. And nature also no beginning, middle, and end. When it ends, it just goes to seeds. And in potential, and those seeds are in your deep sleep state, because all of the worlds come out of your consciousness. This Maya also doesn't have a beginning, middle, and end. Although Shankara might step in here and say, it does have an end, it's called moksha. Well, we'll look at that today. There's an eternal pathway to moksha. And it's being suggested by these slokas in the Akshi Upanishad, which 4 times a year so far we've been coming, and we've made our way through around 15 of those slokas, 14 to be precise. And this is the chart I made for the Akshi Upanishad that can help guide us through this great rishi's teachings. He was called Samkriti. Samkriti went to the sun god, Surya. That means he repaired inside, in the English here, that he had to go inside himself to find the source of all light. That's the sun god. So one of the 5 main sects in India, you can worship Krishna or Shiva or Mother or elephant-headed god Ganesha, and the sun, Surya, which isn't the ball of fire in the sky like the Egyptians worshipped or something, but it's like this power of light that forms the suns. Billions of them, and also great ideas are suns in that's a S-U-N, by the way, right now. So it forms those suns of great thoughts and great minds. So he went inside to find Surya, and found him in his meditation, and then began to talk to him, ask him questions. He said, I wanted to know that knowledge that's so hard to come by which one can be liberated while living in the body. So he's not interested in a post-mortem emancipation, like, oh, I want to get free later and go somewhere and not return, or some sort of transcendental state or something. And he certainly doesn't want to be reborn again from his past karmas. He mentions that here too. Salutations to Lord, who is the supreme cause. It's either him or it's my actions. You see, so what causes all this is either the supreme cause, the causeless cause, or failing him, or failing to see him, or it might be a better word for it, because it doesn't have a gender. Then it's my own actions I'm dealing with right now, and that's a person who's come up to a realization that there's an eternal moment, and time doesn't have any beginning, middle, and end. And people are falling into the illusion that it does. They're falling into the river of time. And in the river of time, there's space, and there's acts, and there's effects, and there's suffering, and there's happiness, and all the dualities are flowing in that river in cycles. And seems to have an end, but doesn't, because you come back and you witness it again. You've witnessed all your births, and you've witnessed all your deaths, but you're still here, so you must be an eternal soul. And if you realize the eternity of it all, Purnam, the infinite nature, the fullness of everything, then you're one step beyond emptiness. So Samkriti gets this information right away from the sun god, who immediately tells him all is one, unborn, tranquil, endless, certain, immutable. See reality in that way. That's that 2% shift. You're seeing it as non-eternal. You're seeing it as cyclic. You're seeing it as restless, chaotic even. You're seeing it as, you're feeling it as uncertain. You think it's this change is going on, that everything is change. Everything is change, but not the formless Brahman upon which everything dances. The ocean's depths never change. It's just the surface that's changing. So you have to dive to the deepest depths. My teacher here in Portland, Swami Sheshanandaji, used to say that. You stay on the surface of the ocean, you get tossed. But if you descend to the uttermost depths there, you'll find the gem of love. And that's an immutable state. So Samkriti is getting, in one sentence, one sloka, the good beginning to the teachings in the 48 slokas that are to follow. And in that way, he says, just see all of this as tranquil, endless, certain, immutable, unborn, and be at ease. It sounds like this is a few thousand years before Christ and Buddha, so, but we know 700 years after Christ and Buddha, Shankar was saying about the same thing. Om Drisham Pratitam Pravilapayan San Matram Anandaganam Vivavayam. Anandaganam, the Lord, Brahman, God, Buddha nature, Allah, whatever you want to call it, is one homogeneous mass of pure conscious awareness. It's infinite and everywhere without boundaries, so it defies change because it's, and movement. See, it's perfect and free of action, free of impurities, and of the nature of indivisibility. So it doesn't need to move because it's already there. When the soul beholds it, it thinks, I want to move about in it. See, I think I'll go have some fun. And fun has, of course, different levels of categories and levels of participation. Like Jesus said, playing in the fields of the Lord. So if you play in the fields of the Lord consciously, that's one thing. But if you forget yourself, then this Maya, this four-letter word, will take you by surprise at some time. And the karmas that come from it, the effects of your actions, if not very conscious and done very carefully, will snap back on you or cycle back on you. So all of this is inferred in what Surya is telling Samkriti. And we went through thereafter, just a quick synopsis, we went through these first two states of yoga because the Akshi Upanishad is giving you something even different than the eight-limbed yoga, which Patanjali was to give thousands of years later. In the eight-limbed yoga, then you can see that Samkriti is becoming the possessor of knowledge of a seven-limbed yoga system. Stages of yoga, we could call them. The limbs we can leave with Patanjali, Ashta, or Astangika, or Buddha had 8 limbs, and Patanjali had 8 limbs. These are the 7 steps. So we took ourselves through that, and again, in synopsis fashion, we found out that when people are approaching this first limb, it falls upon them, or it's a requirement to finally cross transmigratory life. So there's a wide chasm, you might say, between conventional religion and spirituality. You're making a huge jump there. It's not even a leap of faith. It's almost a leap beyond mind. Hopefully your faith is intact already when you take it up. It'll be easier for you if it does. But to gain real spirituality means you're going to see all of this change and negate it. That's why I say it starts out with a negative teaching. You have to be bold, strong, and fearless, some of his favorite words, and see right through the nature of name and form to the formless reality, and then be able to get all of that behind me I think the devil in Christianity, when Christ said, "Get thee behind me," he was talking about Maya. Everything that covered the truth. Because everything that doesn't cover the truth is not real. And people think it's real, and they're investing in it as if it were real. Oh, time is real, space is real, name and form is real, and so forth. All these are the very things that Vedanta says, anicca, asukham. Krishna calls it anicca, asukham, non-eternal, no happiness in them, sukha. And so if you're either a monk seeking the final emancipation or a householder seeking a family, that's the one requisite you're going to have. You're going to have to see right away that this world is unreal, substanceless, empty, that nothing in it can fulfill you, that only Brahman can fulfill you. And if you have that firmly in your heart, then you can enter into the first of these stages. You have to get over transmigratory life. That's what your ancestors and you have been doing for thousands and thousands of years, hundreds and thousands of lifetimes. Now that can't be possible if time is real, you see, because if time is real, then you're going back 4,320,000,000 years to a Big Bang or something. So you're going to have to say, I don't believe in the evolutionary theory, because, that's on the physical level only. Okay, maybe I'll accept it on the physical level only, but the kingdoms of heaven inside transcend the physical. And you're sitting in the Garden of Gethsemane with Jesus, meditating upon those, and he's seen them already. Or Dalai Lama has come out of them over 14 lifetimes and gone back into his Buddha nature and come out again and seen them so many times. And these souls are telling you, give it up, give it up. Be free, be tranquil, be unmoving, be endless, be certain, be immutable. Put an end to this conjuring that the mind does, this pretense that it gets into, that causes doubt and uncertainty, because none of that is abiding. See. In deep sleep tonight it goes away, so why shouldn't it go away in waking? And so they use deep sleep as a kind of, you notice that the system is beginning to base itself on the Advaitic truths, waking, dreaming, and is deep sleep up there? Should be deep sleep. And then finally samadhi, or turiya, beyond. Turiya is the fourth state. Turiya just means four. So you're going to want to see that first, and then transform waking and dreaming and deep sleep into one thing. The mind is divisive. It's always apportioning things. And the more it makes segments and separations and divisions and multitudes and until the mind just gets scattered, the happier it seems to be, gauged by false happiness, passing happiness. So these things that make up the first stage, he says, I'll just go through them real quick for you, we won't have to read the slokas again. One plunges into the noblest of actions. That's basically selfless actions. You try and help others, you forget about yourself. Yourself you'll be taken care of if you just straighten out how you deal with others. Then person at this first state hesitates to do any unregenerate action. Never wants to compromise others. Always attends to righteous deeds, gentle deeds that pain none, and always dreads sins and all forms of sense gratification. So their speech is lovely and fit, and always with due regard to time and place. Thought, act, and deed have been made one, and they wait upon the virtuous. They get wisdom from all conceivable sources when they'll study the scriptures of those who teach them wisely. So that's pretty much their description in a nutshell. these first 7 or so slokas of the first stage. You get over transmigratory life by karma yoga, basically. You transform your acts. Right orientation, again, back to Lord Buddha's Eightfold Path. So if you can transform your actions and keep that, until all the karma from your past actions has leaked away, then all of a sudden you'll find yourself on this even footing. And you'll see that work is not the end-all and be-all of life. It's not looking that way, is it, for our culture? Extremely restless. But to our credit, Vivekananda said, at least we're not down in deep darkness of tamas, like India was when he was born there. He was crying tears about his motherland because of that tamas, or indolence and heaviness and weightiness and darkness that was there, and no way of lifting yourself up and out of it. Even though you had the Sanatana Dharma, the greatest teachings the world has ever seen, back in your past, somehow you had come to this lamentable position in contemporary times. And so you could see how then why Vivekananda would later, and I paraphrase him, work has no efficacy whatsoever except that it brings you knowledge. And when you get knowledge, then you'll give up works. And so to get knowledge from works, you're going to have to begin to get that right orientation. So you have to do them in such a way that you're not seeking for any fruit. I mean, if you want to go back to the Gita, Sri Krishna is probably one of the best teachers on karma. And he's got these bullet points, and like this chart here, the 4 yogas and their synthesis that's put up in our ashram here. Has all the bullet points of the 4 yogas. So in karma yoga, if I were to look at it right now and read it, though you can't see it, engage only in obligatory actions, renounce action done for selfish motives, perform all action with evenness of mind, do not seek the fruits of your actions, detach from the outcome of action, perform all work as worship. That's a wording Vivekananda gave it. Utilize all work to serve God and mankind. You never serve mankind, you serve God and mankind. And work meticulously, but with detachment. So it's not an excuse to, I'll give up works, now I can be lazy, I don't have to do something. You can see monks and householders both fall into that trap. But you have to be very meticulous in what you do, and very careful, very conscious. They're calling that mindfulness nowadays, and so forth. And then you've set the boat right, you see. Now the boat's in the water, but the water didn't get in the boat. And you're able to balance yourself across that ocean of existence. All of that is a quick synopsis, since we haven't seen each other in 2.5 months, of Doorway 1. You see. What's behind Doorway 1? That's crossing transmigratory life. Very much connected with seeing that a workaday world is not the goal. And that's why you go away for 12 days or 12 nights in the wilderness, or sit under the bo tree for 49 days, or go into the desert once a year like Muhammad did. You get away from everything so you remember, so, oh yes, because Maya otherwise will take you over. You'll think so different about everything, till you get that reflection, that breath, the breath of life, detachment. I've got a chart here, it's 12 levels of detachment. I can show you probably tomorrow. Well, then let's go on to the second doorway, which we studied. We've been studying over the last couple visits. Vichara is an interesting word. If you know anything about Ramana Maharshi or Lord Vashishta, they're sort of the 2 bookends of Atma Vichara. Back in Lord Vashishta's time, he was the teacher of the young avatar Ram when he was a teenager, who was Krishna's predecessor by millennia. Vashishta was very big on the method of vichara. You have to analyze things. Analyze them from yourself. The mind's going to be involved in that, so again, you're going to have to purify the mind somewhat so that it can be your friend, so that you can do an analysis process that isn't throwing you curves all the time. And of course, if you've crossed transmigratory life already, then you're not depending on advice from friends and family and ancestors and all of that. They're lost. You've had to conclude that. They're totally swept up into the illusion of change. And they know nothing about the changeless reality. Sound familiar? Because if you know something about the changeless reality, or if you know it outright, then you're in nirvana, or you're in samadhi, or you're in satori, or you're in sampragyata, or any other name you want to give it from these great religions. Fana in Muslim religion, beatific vision, if you could borrow that from Christianity. You're in this very high state of mind in which the world doesn't exist anymore. Well, it never did exist, so good second step, you see. You concluded it doesn't exist. It's a phantom of my mind. It's a dream. That's why they're calling it dream, waking dream. And you're going to want to wake up out of this dream once and for all. And when you do, the world disappears and God stands there. That's really as simply as it can be put. The world is God, but not the things, not the atoms, not the objects. That's Maya putting an obfuscation in front of everything and covering Brahman, which is the substratum behind everything. Your breath should tell you this, you see. That's why they have you breathe, or should be telling you that when you breathe, is that that's the prana back there that's causing you to breathe back and forth. And you don't know anything about the prana yet. Man does not live by bread alone. You're thinking it's your food that's giving you power and so forth, but beings have greater power who don't eat, or eat very seldom. So all of these things are in the way of your constant conscious knowing. You can have glimmers of knowing if you practice, but what you want is a constancy that's unbroken and undiluted, unalloyed, uninterrupted, the scriptures call it. And who's got that, you see? A few lights come out and shine a little bit, and then the wool goes, they put the wool back, you see, and go back into hiding. But only an unsheathed sword, walking around would have that kind of power. Get out your cosmic sunglasses when he comes around. You're bright. The atmosphere becomes lit up. We're lighting up this atmosphere right now by just dipping into the story of Surya and Samkriti with the Dharma teachings. For 3 hours we'll be in God right now. We'll then walk out the door, or will we keep that state, or will we just go back to Maya and suffer it? The wool back down. So if we were to describe the second level after the transmigratory process has been crossed, the subtitle there is finds a teacher and studies. There are people here in America finding teachers. In fact, they find them every couple months. Go on to the next one and find it again. So it's this spiritual menu tasting problem we have, is straw on fire syndrome that we're under. And most of those teachers they're finding aren't really teaching the Dharma like this. They're giving you body exercises, some breathing exercises, and some occult interest in some occult things, which are as changing as anything else in the world. Wanting to look for the changeless, you have to settle down. That's why I'm sitting like this, and can sit like this forever, and can speak like this forever, because I've settled down into the Dharma and accepted it and got the rest behind me. And that's been a 49-year trip in this lifetime alone. So I'm just recalling the wisdom that's back inside of all of us, that's all. There's nothing new under the sun is a true statement in Christianity. That was said to the apostles, but Ecclesiastes later brought it out. You see, there's nothing new under the sun. Everything came from something that was already in existence. So I would say that's true about all things, but most importantly, you might want to apply that to your soul, because I was talking to a teenage boy yesterday right here, and I was saying, well, some things, we're going to have to really analyze. I'm glad you're asking these questions, because For instance, do you think a soul can be created? And he shook his head no. I was surprised. And he said, where would you get the things to create a soul for? What are the materials you would create consciousness out of? See, you can create mannequins, and you can create physical bodies, and you can create all sorts of things, but a soul is acreate. It was a word he coined when he came here to try and make us understand that the soul is eternal. Read my lips, read my scriptures better, because that soul was always in existence, and that soul gave rise to the scriptures and the knowledge of the scriptures. That's all in you all the time. There never was a time it wasn't in you. There will never come a time when it isn't in you. It's always within you. All you have to do is access it. So if you're of that perspective and you walk into a school and you see children studying, you ask them, why are you here again? All that knowledge that you're seeking is within you. Let's try a different method. Let's try and bring up the knowledge that's within you. At the age of 8, Shankara remembered everything. All the scriptures of India. You imagine how much that is? Like my teacher being able to recite the entire Gita in Sanskrit and English when he was 90. I mean, he would stand there doing it for us. Where did that come from? Well, he had recalled it in this lifetime, just rekindled it, and then it was easy for him. It just came forth because he'd already done that before. So you should be using your lifetimes for the attainment of higher wisdom, quick, while Maya has parted. So there's a little light there, while the going is good. And that's that breath of life. That's that moment in time, where the green scum parts and you can see yourself in the lake before the green scum comes dancing back, Sri Ramakrishna said in the Gospel. So this is why your speech was well informed, you see, at this first level, and your actions were careful. You didn't want to add any more gloom upon gloom. Strike off thy fetters, bonds that bind thee down, of shining gold or darker baser ore, good, good, bad, bad, and all the dual throng, and so forth. Vivekananda's famous poem to the free soul. He said, don't pile more gloom on gloom. See, you stop the gloom, and then find a way out of that gloom. Don't pile more on it as you're trying to get out. This is like kicking in quicksand. You see, I think you sink more every kick. So be still. Let that effect from past actions you did die away, and get a little clarity, and then make your wise way out of that predicament. So if they do, then you're also opening up the pathway to a teacher. Guru principle, we call it. Trying to get free of Maya without the help of Guru is like growing crops only at night. Vasishtha said, is that early bookend to Vichara, and the other bookend would then be Ramana Maharshi, I was saying, in recent times. They both practiced Atma Vichara. Who am I is the question you ask in Atma Vichara. So it became a very famous non-dual way. Well, not that famous, but one of the ways, along with the 4 yogas and 8 different pathways, is one of the ways in which a soul could get free if that was the way they really identified with. Some have to go by devotion, some by meditation, and so forth. But this direct question to yourself, who am I? Who's asking the question? And is it the ego or is it God? Or who do you love? Who's your daddy? However you want to phrase it, you see. It gets straight to the point, and you have to answer it yourself. So it became a very direct way to punch your way out of the paper bag of Maya. Add a little moistening, and it's a wet paper bag you can get out, you see. So Atma Vichara became very well pronounced again in this age after Vasishtha had brought it forth so many millennia ago. So that's kind of how what you're doing here, Vichara Bhumika. And here's some of the things we read about it. After one attains the first state of yoga and crosses over transmigratory life, he becomes a yogi. You see, like Krishna saying, Arjuna, be thou a yogi in the Gita. So he's yoga. All the rest are good people. You might ask this question. They're good people. I want to go to heaven and I want to do good to people and so forth. Sun God says they're just noble, Arya, but they haven't crossed over the transmigratory cycle yet. I was talking with a Christian chaplain day before yesterday along the coast in a prison I stopped to teach, and he said, well, are you sure you want to give this kind of message of renunciation to these inmates? See, I said, yeah, we need to give it right away while we have them, while we've got their attention. See, and so I posed him a question. I said, well, let's put it this way. You're in prison. They're trying to reform you of something you did or some way you think. And then you get reformation. They let you out. They send you to get married, to get a job, and to go to church. And then you think you're reformed. And then family turns sour and children get evil and church is hypocritical. And so you're left with emptiness at the end of your life. What about that? He said, yeah, you're right. I wouldn't advise them to go to church. This is a Christian chaplain. So people are beginning to realize that this everyday run of life out here is Maya. I mean, it's how we would put it. It's samsara, if you want to put it in Buddhist state. It's not something that's going to fulfill you, no matter how much you call the world your oyster. It's not your oyster. It's your bad dream. And it recurs. You wake up, you dream, you wake up, you dream, you wake up, you dream. You never get into deep sleep. That is, you never go beyond name, form, time, space, and causality and ask, who am I? What am I doing here? Where is this? Why am I here? How do I get out? I mean, those are the great questions. Why, where, when, who, and what? And then how is a method. But the problem with those 4 W's, see, is when means time, and what means objects, and why means cause and effect, and where means space. So that's all Maya. We've already said that. But who am I? Points you to the truth. You see, who am I in time, in space, engaging in this stream, and so forth? All of a sudden, you're a witness. You're maybe not a professional witness yet or an advanced witness, but you are a witness. It gave you a moment of clarity, khyati, they call it in Sanskrit. And that moment of clarity, if you grab it, hold on to it, and expand it, then you can live in that for hours, then a day, and then maybe a week or a month, or 49 days, or 49 lifetimes. And that's called a seer. Samkriti is a seer. And he's going to the sun god to make sure he gets this clarification, because he's living on earth, see, in a body. That's always risky. So the rest are just Arya, noble, the good people. But so they're making a distinction between good, better, and best. There are good people out there who are still in the transmigratory process. So that's why bad things happen to good people. They can answer all these questions with Vedanta. Because 2 years ago, I had a lady right here in this room, just like this young teenage boy, and she was Christian, and she was crying, and she said, I don't know what to do anymore. Losing my faith and this and that, and I don't know why. I just got my credit card stolen by someone, and they put a bunch of charges on. She was going on with this tale of woe, and she didn't know why bad things happen to good people. So it's not God or devil that's to blame. Holy Mother said, don't blame God for things that happen to you. That's your business. And don't praise God either. God's not a person that you can go to. It's a transcendental reality you're talking about. Not even Surya is that God. He's below that God. And, you know, if you're a hailstone, you fall into the ocean, then you'll know what that God is. But as long as you have a hailstone form, a hailstone name, a hailstone phase of time, and a hailstone space you're in, then you're still at odds with that God. You'll be calling it a name, and you'll give it a form. And a lot of the religions didn't want you to do that. You see, Judaism and so on. Be very careful about any name of God. So that's the difference between noble people, good people, because if we start with the good people, you know, we're already beyond the pale of evil people or ignorant people or confused people. That's the ocean of samsara you're talking about out there, and who can help that? But people are beginning to lift themselves up and out of suffering, and if you're a sensitive soul, you have an eye to that. There's no other reason really to be here than to help others, and that's why you started off with karma yoga. You had to get that real clear. You know, my fish is fried, what do I need? I'm fine. I found Sri Ramakrishna and Swamiji, what do I need anymore? I'm a child of the mother, nothing can hurt me. Death can't even scare me anymore. Fear I have none, as the stotram starts out saying. So, therefore I should put my mind on this problem of people, and probably the best cross-section of that to put in mind on is those people who are beginning to show a little awakening. We call that intelligence, and so did Buddha. There's a very mean intelligence in ignoble people who are getting particles and, you know, exploding them and dominating over countries and so forth. That's a very mean intelligence. It's not God-oriented. You don't know about the divine power in particles. So when the divine power of Atman, intelligent particles, takes the field, then it'll know what to do with atomic particles. So first you have to have Jnanamatra, wisdom particles. What about those particles? Because atomic particles is on the physical level with the 4 billion shelf life, you see. And then you have the next particle is prana, your breath and where your ancestors went. They went to a state of lower heaven that's consisting of pranic particles. So there's not a lot of intelligence there because prana is an insentient force. And if you don't control it, you come back again, or you get attracted to occult powers. And occult powers are an obstacle to your spiritual path. So you step in deeper and you get this intelligent particle. You see, and you concentrate that, like if I be single concentration. And then you can see through, well, like laser-like, you can see through any darkness. And you can see through the darkness of others. You can penetrate it and say, wake up. Utistata jugrata prapya vrani bodhata ksharasyajara duratyaya. Arise and wake and stop not till the goal is reached. Approach the wise teachers, learn from them, because the spiritual path is like a razor's edge. This was his favorite quote from the Upanishads. Swami Vivekananda loved that. Arise, awake, stop not till the goal is reached. So the goal is a capital G. Paragatam, Krishna calls it in the Gita. And it's exactly what Buddha preached when he was in the body, thousands of years later. He was 550 years before Christ and several thousand years after Krishna. So he said, Paragatam, gatam, gatam, paragatam. Go from these lower goals to the higher goal, which is sort of a contradiction in a way, because you already are the goal, you're at the goal. Somewhere inside of you, you know the goal, yet here you are out with the body-mind mechanism having to clear up your karma because you think the world's real and you're engaged in works and you think that'll get you free. But you can do 100,000 acts and that won't get you free. You can breathe thousands and thousands of times and that won't get you free. You can sit in different positions and twist yourself into pretzel shapes and that won't get you free. You can go bow at the feet of dozens of gurus and that won't get you free. You can try and purify your mind, and that won't get you free. It's because you're already free. That's the weird thing about it, you see, is that you are freedom. You're an eternal soul, and this is your dream. So wake up. Just give up the dream. There's too much power in the dream. 7 billion people are dreaming here. And your ancestors are much more than that in the prana particle loka. So you get to the intelligent particle loka, and you enter a whole different cut of souls. You're finding these great teachers. That's why Samkriti went inside to find the sun god. He couldn't find anyone to talk to out here. I better go where there's light. I better go where there's intelligence, real intelligence that has heart behind it, and deep wisdom, and so I can sit in it. See, and all this overlay I've taken on will just melt away. I'll be fresh again. I'll be free again. This time I'm going to see if I can hold it. See, this lifetime, this time around, and see if I can hold that state of oneness for myself, not deviate. So beyond those people who are just noble, the word there in Sanskrit is Arya, you come to this next stage of yoga. Remember we said vichara. You resort to the teachers right away. You see you need to have some advice and some teachings. So you go to those who are teaching Shruti and Smriti. Shruti means that which you have to hear. Smriti means that which would be helpful to hear. So Shruti would be Upanishads, Gita, Brahma Sutras, Avaruta Gita, Ashtavakra Samhita, all these non-dual scriptures which, oh, by the way, we don't find them here in our libraries. They're not here. They're not in European libraries either, for the most part. A few Christian mystics and some Meister Eckhart and so forth. But where can I find this? But it's all over in India. You must hear the Shruti. That's what you have to hear, because that'll orient you properly to the fact that you are that thou art. I and my Father are one. This self is Brahman, or this self is pure conscious awareness. Then Smriti will help. Smriti means Ramayana, Mahabharata, anything that's a scripture that's in a story form, because stories have always helped. Buddha taught with stories, Jesus taught with stories. Analogy, metaphor. He shines like the sun. He's not the sun, but he shines like the sun. So any kind of inference that's there that will help you get that moment of detachment from mundane human convention, from everyday life. Just get a breath, get some detachment and back up from it. And then make it a habit to do that every day for an hour. It's called meditation. But meditation best accompanied with contemplation, scriptures. What are you meditating on? My teacher gave me meditation, sent me to a 30-day meditation retreat. Can I go? I tell my students, absolutely not. You do your hour meditation like you're supposed to. If you can meditate for 3 minutes perfectly, then I'll call you a master. But you can't do that. So you're going on a 30-day retreat. So learn to focus for a short amount of time. Patanjali, the father of yoga, said 11 seconds is a minor samadhi. If you can concentrate for 11 seconds perfectly, without any thought of form or I or thou or God or man or life or death or problems or tribulations or triumphs, then you've got this state for 11 seconds of perfection. Now you have to grab that and expand it before the next train of thought comes, you see. That's the secret of time in India, is that a moment passes, and then another moment passes, and then another moment passes, you see. Monty Python did a skit on that. It was very humorous. But anyway, one moment passes, and the next moment comes, and the next moment comes, and that takes up time, you see. And then objects get into the time they form there. That's space. What you're supposed to do is, in between when a second passes and the next second passes, or in between when the first thought occurs and the last thought occurs, there's a space, which is void. you're supposed to concentrate on that and grab it and expand it so that time can't throw another second at you, see? Or mind can't throw another thought at you, because this is how Maya works. You get pulled into that. And to be absolutely equanimous, like Krishna asks you to be in the Gita, probably uses that word a dozen times, stiti pragnasya, steady wisdom, steady, whoa boy, pull back, you know everything already, why are you rushing after knowledge? Let's try and access it by smriti, by remembering it. So that would be something that you're asking yourself in the Atma Vichara stage. See, can I remember this? Probably if I concentrate on the scriptures I can, because that's where it's contained, wherein that knowledge is contained. Like they asked Patanjali, why is it we don't remember our past lives? The one-word answer is commerce. Because when you're born, your parents put you into a job. They have you working and thinking right away. And so trade, money, commerce is your whole life, and it makes you forget your past lifetime. So you have to get yourself free of the attraction to money. There's thinking about money, there's trying to acquire money, there's acquiring money, there's holding money, there's brooding about money, and then there's fear of loss of money. That's one of the teachings from Lord Kapila. 6 stages of having to deal with money. See? Why not just make it goddess, green goddess, and let it go? See? It'll come, it'll go. I'll do my work like an automaton. But I'm going to keep my mind on the source of everything, which is also the source of money, by the way, rightly earned with the right orientation, so that it doesn't come with these stigmas and these attachments. See? If you see a truly dharmic person, whether they're a monk or a householder, they're free of those things. They don't brooding about it. And it's very refreshing to come upon them. So, the scriptures, if you put your mind on that instead of, say, name and fame and power and wealth and all that, then all of a sudden your mind remembers what peace is like. Holy Mother said, you must have peace first and foremost. You can't get anything without peace. So peace starts off as sattva, that is balance. You feel like you're a balanced person. But you can't stay there, because that's not deep enough. You have to go to pure sattva, chit shuddhi, purity of thought. And when your mind dwells always in purity of thought, then you'll feel the peace, begin to feel the peace that passes all understanding, as Jesus talked about. Those things are still far away from most beings. So you have to beckon them forth. You see, there are certain offerings you can make to usher your peace of mind back into you. You see, oh, here I'll give you this, I'll give you this, I'll give you this. And they can't be selfish offerings, and they can't be offerings done out of bad intentions or hypocrisy or anything. They have to be really true offerings of the heart, you see, and then peace will come out of hiding and begin to enter your life again. And then you want to install it and keep it. So all of this is proceeding in this second state called analysis, vichara. A householder knows his homestead, and having mastered all that has to be learned, the sadhaka comes to know the categories and doctrines, vis-a-vis what has to be done and what has to be avoided. Categories, doctrines, what are those in India? Well, how about the 8 limbs of yoga? How about the Eightfold Path? How about the 4 fruits? How about the sadhana chatushtaya? There's just a host of categories and doctrines. How about the 24 cosmic principles of Samkhya? The householder comes to know those, because that arms him against any further intrusion by Maya at the least expected time, sometimes when these things come out of the woodwork of life. So That's sloka 12. We're in sloka 15 right now, so this is how we're bringing us up on this very unknown 7 stages of yoga. Very few people have gotten into the Akshi Upanishad and then come to know that Samkriti had a yoga system too, just like Patanjali did. And then analogy, as a snake sheds its slough, so sheds he, that is, the person at the 2nd stage, the slightest attachment to external objects. When they are magnified by pride, conceit, intolerance, greed, or delusion. So any of those unsavory mix with the object puts you in Maya and puts you at odds with reality. Relativity gets you. But if those things were not there, objects are fine. You can utilize them, you can move amongst them, and with no attachment, then fine. See, you can even live in a country like object-obsessed America and be okay with objects and not suffer their undue effects. But if they're magnified by pride, conceit, intolerance, greed, and delusion, then you're following the wrong path, down the wrong road. We looked at a number of charts with all those first 13 slokas, and last visit, a couple months ago, we ended with this one. With a mind disciplined through devotion to the Shastras, scriptures, teacher, and the company of the virtuous, one truthfully masters the entire body of knowledge, including all the secret doctrines. So, 49 years I've spent doing that with my teacher Swami Sheshananda part, and so that's what you do. That's the path of wisdom, Jnana Yoga. What are its bullet points? Recite the slokas of the scriptures, memorize the slokas of the scriptures, take teachings from an illumined teacher, comprehend the meaning of the scriptures, discriminate between the real and the unreal, penetrate through the cosmic appearance of things, contemplate the nature of reality, Atma-vichara, and abide continually in non-dual realization. That would be Jnana Marg, path of yoga, Jnana Yoga, of the 4 yogas. All obsessed with Hatha Yoga you see in this country, but I can't find it. In the scriptures, I can't find it. Oh, there's the word yoga, 4 yogas. I can't find Hatha Yoga there. So, this is Hatha Yoga. One position, ekasana. Who said that? The master of Jnana Yoga, Shankara. So otherwise it's just a twisting of limbs like an old tree without any leaves. It ends in nothing but health of the body and your attachment to the body. Just find one position, rest there, because you've got to get to this critter. The mind is the gateway to heaven. It's also the doorway to hell. If it identifies with the body, that's the doorway to hell. You don't have to wait to go to hell. You're in hell. America is hell, if it's divorced from knowledge of Brahman. But it's heavenly state, and deeper than heaven if you marry it to action, to meditation, and to love, the love of God. People think that Jnanam and Bhakti are somehow contrary to one another. It's the 2 wings of the bird you're talking about. You need devotion to keep wisdom from getting dry, and you need wisdom to keep devotion from getting sentimental. So you've got to have the balance. Well, here's where we enter into this sloka. Just as a lover repairs to the spotless bed of flowers, from the second the sadhaka proceeds to the 3rd state called non-attachment. And that's where we ended last time. Non-attachment there, achieves non-attachment, asansarga, it's called there. Let me get my copy out so I'm not craning my neck all the time. asansarga. Some of the beautiful quotes around that. The first stage is an ambrosial sprout and is the internal cleansed birthplace of the other states. So you need to have this first step there. Among these early stages, the third stage, which we've just introducing now, is superior. For it is here that the sadhaka, a practitioner, outgrows the tendency to imagine and thereby get ensnared by his own mind, maya. So he's made a decision about transmigratory existence. He's approached the teacher and asked the right questions. Now his own mind is becoming his guru, as Sri Ramakrishna said. He lit his torch on someone who was already free, and now he has to go back a few times maybe to keep getting it lit as the waters of the world douse it every once in a while. But nevertheless, there it is at that third stage, being characterized by not imagining anymore. Sankalpa would be the word in Sanskrit, which we don't really have a word for in English. Fantasies, imaginations, you know what you're seeing in the movie houses and stuff nowadays, talking animals and cartoons and crap like that. You know, you get over that real quick and you start looking at, for reality and things that make sense, a higher turn. Fixing the mind steady on the truthful import of the scriptures and busy with the recitation of spiritual texts, proper to the hermitages of the ascetics, he expends his long life seated on a bed of stone or on a slab or on an asana, directing himself in the forest made beautiful by his own mind. That's the 16th and 17th sloka. As a result of his meritorious actions, the righteous sadhaka passes his time in the delights of detachment, repeatedly studying the positive shastras. One's perception of reality becomes clear in due course. The enlightenment then reaches the third state and experiences all this for himself. So that's the introductory slokas to the to the third state. And side by side with this, I wanted to show you, since we mentioned Lord Vashishta's pathway to moksha, we call it. And we won't have to take a long time in it. But in fact, let me read it down before we take anything specific. The first entry, since you can't see it, is when you enter into spiritual life, you want to know the difference between Ajnana Shastra and Jnana Shastra. That is the hidden, worldly tainted scriptures and the revealed scriptures. So I'm not going to name any religions or any particular scriptures other than my own as a critical evaluation. I could very easily, but basically any scripture that entertains subjects of the world is a non-revealed scripture. And so this is why Westerners are looking far afield for revealed scriptures, Taoism, Vedanta, so forth. We want something that smacks of wisdom, not the world. And so you could put it this way, any scripture or teacher for that matter that focuses you on the relationship between yourself and reality, or put it this way if you want, although it's not a non-dualistic way of putting it, between the apparently individualized self and the Supreme Self. You're the Jiva and Shiva in Tantra. That scripture is a revealed scripture. So, and that's the only subject. It's Brahman, Brahman as Brahman, and Maya doesn't come up. Suffering doesn't come up. they focus you just in on the truth. And by concentrating on the truth, you water the flowers. And when you water the flowers, you don't water the weeds. And when you don't water the weeds, they go away. So it's a very positive way. It might start off with a negative teaching, like you are not the body and you're not the ego and the world's unreal. But what are you then? You concentrate on that. They tell you what Brahman is, as far as words can tell, which is called dharma or teachings. You just concentrate on that, and then all of a sudden you wake up one day and your ignorance is gone. You're not brooding about things that are uncertain. See, let the devotee concentrate on the unborn, the tranquil, the certain, the immutable. It's Pratipaksha Bhavana method of India. It's always been there. We heard others talk about it. I think St. Francis brought it out too in Christianity, but basically you just water the flowers, not the weeds. Don't worry about the weeds. They're going to be there in any garden anyway. Just concentrate on the flowers and watch the weeds. Take your attention off the weeds and watch them go away. Ideally, anyway, that would be what would happen in spiritual life. So the difference between revealed scripture and non-revealed scriptures is Vasishta's first counsel, to his young charge. There in the woods, where we just said there's a spotless bed of flowers and so forth, the forest, and you go to the hermitage of the ascetics and you listen to them talk and you expend your life. You sit in the forest and you hear the teachings, and therefore the world of restlessness and all that just goes away. If you like being on retreat, like people like to go on retreat. I got my cousin to go to a retreat once, and within one day he was just pulling his hair, wanting to leave. I just give it a chance. And 2 days later, 3 days later, he comes up and says, I never want to leave again. So the first day he wanted to leave and get out of there. Third day he had got the idea. He realized in those first couple days that all his worries, his broodings, all the problems and the so-called responsibilities and the duties and everything were pressing in on him, taking away his peace. Now he just went away from them. And all of a sudden he wanted to be on retreat the rest of his life, you see. So that peace of mind that comes, you need that first and foremost. And then you can go back to the world. And maybe the world will even look a little different to you at that point. You may have to go on retreat again to get it back, because it's very hard to hold it. But eventually, as these stages progress, you're able to hold equanimity of mind and peace of mind and so forth. And so the whole thing became very well worth it, because now you have just one thing, God, or God, the world as God. See, it's either God without the world, or it's the world as God. So you've narrowed down the whole process to just Brahman, to just reality, and you're not seeing differences here and there. The next level would be go for the pure desires and get rid of the impure desires. After that, gain the four fruits of life: dharma, kama, artha, and moksha. Dharma means the teachings, artha means right livelihood, kama means legitimate desires, get fulfilled, and moksha means freedom. That's one of the great teachings of India. It's a Divine Mother teaching, four fruits of life, or purusharthas. And Vasishta is telling this to the young Ram. This is the way to moksha, the way he saw it. The next level is make sure you notice the difference between Jnana Guru and Ajnana Guru. I just mentioned that a few minutes ago, is that you go to a teacher, and if they're not teaching you the Dharma, you go, I'm out of here. See? They're teaching you all sorts of other things that are embroiling you into the world or having to do with the world, just like the same thing was true of the scriptures. The scriptures should tell you not about the world. You can find that in hundreds of thousands of books in libraries. You want to know about Brahman. So you go to read a scripture that tells you about Brahman and that relates you to Brahman. And the same with teacher. You're going to have to find a teacher that enhances that knowledge about Brahman and gives it to you. And that's all the association you have with that teacher. You go to my teacher, and I used to go to my teacher and say, well, we're thinking of having children. He'd say, see your doctor. He doesn't have anything to do with your life, He just wants a spiritual life with you. You've got to have one person in your life that you just talk about spiritual things with. And the rest of it, would be better not to have to bring it into the picture. Oh, if you must, you see. But that's why people nowadays in America, they don't understand the guru. Turn them into a psychotherapist, they turn them into a marriage counselor, turn them into everything but what he or she is. That's somebody to help get you free of ignorance by giving you the teachings of truth that are eternal, that have gone back in India for thousands of years. And so if there is anything in time, cycles of time that's good, it's that. If you find yourself in a cycle of time, where's the scripture and where's the guru? And after that, where's my own experience of it? Those are the three great sources. You get a teacher and you get the scriptures, or you get the scriptures and you get the teacher. It's hard to say, depending on each person's spiritual destiny, as it were, which of those comes first. But you can't just stop there. You have to have your own experience of those principles. Guru Anushasana and Vidya Shastra, they're called. Now, at least in this lifetime, I say, I had a spiritual teacher who was authentic, who awoke in me a love of God and knowledge of reality. I have that. I had that. It's mine. It's never going to be taken away again. You realize how much devilish nonsense gets put behind you when you can say that? You don't think you'll waken up soon, or you'll purify soon, or you'll get free eventually, then you don't know the guru. You don't know the guru, the power of the guru. So Guru Anushasana, Vidya Shastra, looking out there with the glut of gurus that people are running to and fro, it's really not the guru's fault. There are many spurious gurus out there, no doubt. But unless you find yourself in front of one and you apprentice him, her, and you find out for yourself what's there, and you accept or reject, then you're just running around like a deer in the woods amidst all the hunters. So, guru and scriptures. Let's say he's saying, if you find a guru and he directs you toward the scriptures, oh, let's read the Gita together. Have you heard of the Upanishads? Have you heard of the non-dual scriptures? Because you've been raised in a culture that doesn't have any. Here, let's go to those. Read this. Talk with me. Atma Vichara. Let's analyze together. That's spiritual life. And it's funny how people are taking every other thing to be spiritual life and not that. Why? Because it's too hard to read? Because it's too hard to study? Because you think words are useless? Words are the most powerful thing in the world. Why? Because the wisdom mother is in every letter. We study wisdom as knowledge here for secular purposes to gain money and all that, so it's not a surprise that we never came upon her. But when you take a word or a sentence or sloka into your mind and contemplate it, she comes forth. She's the power in the word, she's the power that formed the word, she's the power that's revealing herself as the word to you. She's in everything. She's Shakti, she's Mahashakti. And that's why a lot of people become devotees of the Divine Mother. He's Kali, you see. That's real power right there. You think splitting a few particles and going to someone else's backyard and setting off firecrackers to destroy or scare them is power, like our military is doing? This is real power here. It's internal, where the kingdoms of heaven are. It's within you. And yeah, it's frightening at first. It's wrathful. It has to be to destroy your ignorance. Your ignorance is an ego that's fingernails like winnowing hooks and horrible teeth like jagged roots. And I mean, they describe it in various songs in India and Tibet. But you need something equally frightening to scare that away. See? I've tied her to the tufts of my hair. Now she'll never get away. See? With knots of love I've tied her. See? So a lot of that came about for most people by the Word. In the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. The Word is all the way back to the source of things. And it is really the primeval source of things. They call it the unstruck sound in my tradition. And it's the origin of everything. However, we've already said there's no origin to anything. So beyond the Word is Brahman, or Almighty Father. The Word was God. See? So in the beginning was the Word means in the imagination of beginnings. That's why you want to give up imaginations, because you have an imagination of a beginning, you see. But then it was with God means, oh, God and the Word were simultaneously existing. There was vibration. And it started very subtle and it came down to the object. The object is just my thought in a solid state, because that's a gross vibration, but in dream tonight, this very object becomes a dream thing, and that's a subtle vibration. So everything came out of waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. And those are the three worlds they talk about. And you have three bodies inside of the three worlds. I was just on this subject with the inmates at the prison 2 nights ago. 3 bodies, 3 worlds. And Om is spelled with 3 letters, A-U-M. And you have 3 states of consciousness, waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. These are called triputis. You've got to put them together. And, oh, now I see what I've forgotten. This is the Advaita Vidya, the ancient wisdom. And over the long efflux of time, it's been covered over and forgotten. That picture is saying that. Krishna is saying that right there. Over the long efflux of time, you see, I embody myself forth, because the Dharma has been hidden and covered. And I'm coming on the battlefield of life, and I'm going to reveal it to everyone again. Everyone who will listen, I'll reveal it to them. So something stopping there about the importance of the wisdom teacher and the words that he will utter or transmit to you. And the next step there would be 4 qualifications you're going to need. You must discriminate between the real and the unreal. That's like wheat and chaff in the Bible. You must make the difference between the wheat and chaff, or God and mammon. Christ was giving the same teaching. And after you have that discrimination, which he named himself after, Viveka Ananda, then you must see the difference between the two and take to one and renounce the other. That has to be a complete process. You can't just say, oh, I see the truth now, but I'm not going to give up the world. No, you haven't even gotten to the first stage then. You should have renounced the world a long time ago and seen it to be ephemeral, transitory, unreal, a reflection, an imagination, a dream. I mean, you can call it so many different things they have, but they've never called it real. Only the materialists are calling it real. And it's the materialists who are causing all the trouble and suffering. I mean, because why? Because in the first doorway, you only did noble actions. You never hurt anyone. You don't compromise others. You always attend to gentle deeds. You use gentle speech. Does that sound like a materialist? Crass, see, gross, animalistic. That's their life. So if you've passed through the first doorway, you've done it with gentility, with non-violence, ahimsa, we call it in India. And you don't want to cause harm to thought, word, or deed. In thought, word, or deed to anyone, to anything, if you can help it. Of course you can't. There's always going to be some harm you'll do. That's karma. But that's the ideal. May peace be unto us, may peace be unto all. Shanti, shanti, shanti. That's the ideal. You bring shanti to 3 worlds. That's why you say it 3 times. So that's where you would detach, you discriminate, then detach. Then there's 6 things that form the third. It's samodama upuiti, okay, samodama upuiti titiksha, samadana shraddha. That's the called the 6 jewels. And then there's the 4th qualification you get, which is mumukshutvam. I finally get a real desire for freedom. A lot of people say, I want freedom, but 2 days later they don't want it anymore. So mumukshutvam is a word in Sanskrit that's like moksha or mukti, mumukshutvam, which means you finally got that one sincere, true desire to be free of everything in Maya and to actually know the truth and be set free by the truth. Well, we have to break because it's time to, but we'll pick that up toward the end of this, finish this up in the next second half. Thank you for your kind attention.